Penguin Random House Audio presents The Book of Magic, edited by Gardner Dozois. Read for you by Mark Deakins, Elliot Hill, Karissa Vacker, Sheila Bermingham, Maxwell Caulfield, Susan Denaker, Scott Brick, Bruce Mann, Holly Palance, Nicholas Guy Smith, Steve West, Tanya Cornelisi, Stephen Mendel, Al-Marie Guerra, John Lee, Kimberly Farr, Kristen Ariza, and Lincoln Hoppe. Introduction by Gardner Dozois. Sorcerer, witch, shaman, wizard, seer, root woman, conjure man. The origins of the magic user, the one who intercedes with the spirits, the one who knows the ancient secrets and can call upon the hidden powers, the one who can see both the spirit world and the physical world, and who can mediate between them, go back to the beginning of human history and beyond. Fascinating traces of ritual magic have been unearthed at various Neanderthal sites. The ritual burial of the dead, laid to rest with their favorite tools and food, and sometimes covered with flowers. A low-walled stone enclosure containing 7 bear heads, all facing forward. A human skull on a stake in a ring of stones. Neanderthal magic. A few tens of thousands of years later, in the deep caves of Lascaux and Pechmerle and Rouffignac, the Cro-Magnons were practicing magic too, perhaps learned from their vanishing Neanderthal cousins. Deep in the darkest hidden depths of the caves at La Moute and Les Combarelles and Altamira, in the most remote and isolate galleries, the Cro-Magnons filled wall after wall with vivid, emblematic paintings of Ice Age animals. There's little doubt that these cave paintings, and their associational phenomena, realistic clay sculptures of bison, carved ivory horses, the enigmatic Venus figurines, and the abstract and interlacing paint-outlined human handprints known as macaronis, were magic, designed to be used in sorcerous rites, although how they were meant to be employed may remain forever unknown. These ancient walls also give us what may be the very first representation of a wizard in human history, a hulking, shaggy, mysterious, deer-headed figure watching over the bright, flat, painted animals as they caper across the stone. So magic predates art. In fact, art may have been invented as a tool to express magic, to give magic a practical means of execution, to make it work. So that if you go back far enough, artist and sorcerer are indistinguishable, one and the same, a claim that can still be made with a good deal of validity to this very day. Stories about magic go back a similar distance, probably all the way back to when Ice Age hunters huddled around a fire at night, listening to the beasts who howled in the inky blackness around them. By the time that Homer was telling stories to fireside audiences in Bronze Age Greece, the tales he was telling contained recognizable fantasy elements: man-eating giants, spells and counterspells, enchantresses who turned men into swine, that were probably recognized as fantasy elements and responded to as such by at least the more sophisticated members of his audience. By the end of the 18th century, something recognizably akin to modern literary fantasy was beginning to precipitate out from the millennia-old body of oral tradition. Folk tales, fairy tales, mythology, songs and ballads, wonder tales, travelers' tales, rural traditions about the good folk, and haunted standing stones and the giants who slept under the countryside, first in the form of Gothic stories, ghost stories, and arabesques, and later, by the middle of the next century, in a more self-conscious literary form in the work of writers such as William Morris and George MacDonald, who reworked the subject matter of the oral traditions to create new fantasy worlds for an audience sophisticated enough to respond to the fantasy elements as literary tropes, rather than as fearfully regarded, half-remembered elements of folk beliefs. People who were more likely to be entertained by the idea of putting a saucer of milk out for the fairies than to actually do such a thing. By the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?